الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So moving on to the next chapter is Izalat al-Najasa. Now, the chapter of removing impurities. Of the things that's mentioned, that the removing of impurities is mentioned in this order after water because after mentioning water, and when it becomes impure, then it's mentioned what it is now purified with. How do you purify something that is now impure? Of the things that's mentioned, the first way that is changed or is purified is if the thing that caused it to change is removed. If that which caused the water to change is removed, and the change also is removed, then the water becomes pure. So if something caused the taste or the smell or the color to change from something impure, but that has been removed now, that thing has been removed, and the change has also been removed, then that will become again pure. Whether that was done by someone's action or something that happened gradually over time from natural causes, for whatever reason it may have been. For example, you had a bucket of water, a large bucket of water, something impure was in it, but it was open, and then rain kept coming in, rainwater for example, until the color that had changed was now restored to the water's natural color. The taste no longer was different, the smell was no longer different. So all those things that had an impact on the water have now been removed. For whatever reason there may be, then that becomes pure. Second way water is purified, بإضافة شيء من الماء إليه حتى تزول نجاسته. By adding something from water to it until the impurity is gone. So adding water to the water until the impurity is gone. Also, let's say there was water that had a section of the water, a large amount of water, a large area of water, but in a particular area within the water there was an impurity. If that impurity is now removed and doesn't affect the other part of the water is still pure. And Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen mentions in general these are the three methods of purifying the water. The next thing that's mentioned, هل يشترط لإزالة النجاسة النية? Is it a condition to have intention when removing impurities? I mentioned لا يشترط لأنها ليست عبادة مأمورة بها بل هي قدر أمر بإزالته. It mentions it's not an act of worship that one is commanded with, but rather it's something that is impure that we've been commanded to remove. So it does not require intention to be done. Also, the things to be known is al-asl fil ashya'i at-tahara hatta yaqum ad-dalil ala najasatiha. The foundation in things is that they are pure unless there's evidence to say otherwise. So the asl, the foundation, is that things are pure until we have evidence to say that it's impure. Just like the asl in ashya is al-hil hatta yaqum ad-dalil ala tahrimiha. Just like the foundation in things is that it's halal until we have evidence to say that it's haram. So without evidence, then we can't say it's haram. Just like we said earlier, so basically if someone wants to do an act of worship, we don't need to bring evidence to say it's wrong. They need to bring evidence that they can do it. When it comes to things that are not acts of worship, then we don't need to bring evidence for it to be done. You need to bring evidence to say you can't do it. It's the opposite way around. So in acts of worship, in order to do them, you have to have evidence. In things that are outside of worship, then they are permitted unless you have evidence to say otherwise. Like eating and drinking, you can eat and drink whatever you want, except that which has been prohibited by way of evidence. Had there been no evidence for a prohibition, you could have ate and drank whatever it was. Now, so from there's evidence for it, then it's no longer allowed to be drunk. For example, al-khamar, or alcohol specifically. At a time, alcohol was permissible until evidence came to prohibit it. Once it was prohibited, it was no longer allowed to be drunk. The evidence for these principles, that the asl is that is permitted, is the qawl Allah Ta'ala, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Allah is the one who created for you that which is within the earth altogether. Everything that's in the earth, Allah created it for mankind's benefit. However, there are things that we have been prohibited from as a test. As a test. Also, from this, we have another principle. Does it necessitate that whatever is prohibited, that is what? Najis, that is impure? Is it necessary to understand anything that has been prohibited, that is haram, that also means that it's what? Najis. هذا لا يلزم. That's not the case. However, the opposite is true. Anything that is najis, هل يلزم من كون الشيء نجسا أن يكون محرما؟ نعم يلزم. If something is impure, does that necessitate it to be haram? The answer is yes. It is haram. أي شيء نجس يعني أي شيء نجس لا أي شيء نجس حرام أي شيء نجس حرام حرام. أما إزالة النجاسة it consists of two aspects. One, إزالة النجاسة, how to remove the impurity. And secondly, clarifying what is the impurity, what are the impurities, what are the things that are considered to be impure. No. But the first thing that is mentioned, the first hadith, hadith number 22, is mentioned عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخمر تتخذ خلا قال لا أخرجه مسلم والترمذي وقال حسن صحيح. So it mentions سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he was asked, but as for the one who's questioning, it's not mentioned who it is. And this is not, it's not necessary to know who has said it, because the main focus is the hukum, what is the ruling, not the person who said it. About alcohol or khamran, alcohol is it to be, can you make vinegar out of it? The Prophet said la. Al-khamar, the word khamar, هو كل ما خامر العقل كما قال عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. And that's anything that has an impact on the intellect, the mind. Anything that distorts the mind in any shape or fashion, then this is khamar. It's not specific to alcohol. Any intoxicant is called khamar. So we say the word khamar, that's why people try to say other drugs, they're permissible. Other batil. Because the actual Arabic language, khamar, does not refer only to alcohol. Rather, khamar kullu ma yukhamir al-aql, أو يعني كل مسكر خمر كما جاء في الحديث. Anything that intoxicates is khamar, as it came in the hadith. Now, this is whether it's made from grapes, dates, wheat, barley, whatever it is. Anything that intoxicates and is considered to be called khamar, and it doesn't refer to one specific thing. Also, of the things that are mentioned, al-khamar muharram bil-kitabi was-sunnati wa ijma' al-muslimin. Khamar is prohibited by way of the Quran, the Sunnah, and consensus of the Muslims. And there's no one who will say that it's not haram. ومن أنكر تحريمه وقد عاش بين المسلمين فإنه مرتد. Whoever says it's not haram and they live among the Muslims, then this person is apostated. The person who has that stance is an apostate. Murtad. Apostate.
Apostate.
For example, it mentions كل من أنكر ما علم من الدين بالضرورة. Anyone who rejects that which is known from Islam by necessity. There's no way a person cannot know it, then that person apostates, is apostate from Islam. For example, if a person says zina is not haram, من أنكر تحريم الزنا فهو مرتد لا شك. Also, for example, من أنكر وجوب صلوات الخمس, whoever says you don't have to pray 5 times a day, مرتد. And هذا الشيء معلوم بالضرورة, that's known by necessity. It's known by necessity. And anything that is similar to that, of the things that are known, that we don't actually need to study to know it, it's just known by necessity. To say that's not the case, then that a person apostates on that basis. Also, of the things that is mentioned, Now, of the things that's mentioned, also by way of, if you look at a person's mind state, intellect and aqd, their mind, just that alone allows you to know that it's haram, because of the person who is intoxicated and say drunk or out of their state of mind is considered to be attributed to the majaneen, in terms of the rulings of those who are not well mentally. And it also mentions, you find a person who is in this state may divorce their wives, may even kill their own children, or even do immoral actions with those who are considered to be their maharim, those that they're not permitted to have any form of relations with. And of the things that was mentioned, a young man, and this is just an example of the harms of alcohol. A young man entered upon his mother at 1 o'clock in the night, after midnight, and seduced her and wanted to have immoral acts with her. Waliyadu billah. And she rejected him. Obviously it's his mother. So he took out a knife and said, either you allow me to do what I want to do, or I will kill myself. Not that he would kill her, but he would kill himself. And he mentioned, out of compassion of the mother, she allowed him to do whatever he did. Now, لما أصبح في الصباح كان ضميره أشعره بذلك. It mentions when he got up in the morning, as if his conscience, there was something on his conscience that something wasn't right. So he mentioned that فجاء إلى أمه. He came to his mother and said, يا أمي أفعلت كذا وكذا, did I do such and such? قالت لا خوفا عليه. She said, no, out of fear for him. فأقسم عليها إلا أن تخبره. So he made her take oath that she had to tell him. So she informed him. It mentioned ثم إنه انتقل من عندها وأخذ تنك من غاز ودخل الحمام وصبح عليه وأحرق نفسه. It mentioned, obviously she had to inform him now, because she's made him take an oath. He's made her take oath. And when she'd informed him, he took a container of gas, a tank of gas or petrol, and poured it over himself and set himself alight in the bathroom. Set himself alight on fire out of the great remorse that he had of the action that he fell into with his mum. And all of that, they started off from what? Alcohol. That's why they say khamar. Khamar, they say is as referred to in hadith in the Nasa'i, يعني تسميتها بأم الخبائث. That is the mother of all evils. Alcohol is the mother of all evils. In the next hadith as well, وَمِفْتَاحُ كُلِّ شَرٍ, and the key to all evils. And the prohibition of khamr, it went through stages. The first stage, أنه كان حلالا. The first stage is that it was permissible. Then Allah started to present the prohibition by saying, يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. It mentioned, they ask you about alcohol, and gambling. It mentions in them is a great sin and benefit for mankind. However, the sin and the evil is greater than the benefit. And from this we also learn principles of the Sharia. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited that which is either greater in harm than good, or yani sharrun mahd, that which has pure evil. Whatever is purely evil, haram, khalas. Whatever the evil of it outweighs the good of it is also going to be prohibited. And that's also something that will lead a person to leaving off something, because the mind is not going to be inclined to something that has a greater evil than good. So that is the initial stages of when the prohibition had occurred. As for this, the third state of prohibiting al-khamr, Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون. Surah An-Nisa, verse 43. Allah says, "O you who believe, do not come near the salah whilst you are drunk, until you are able to comprehend that which you say." And that also shows min zawal al-aql, yani al-mukhammar, the one who is intoxicated, not able to comprehend that which they say. The one who is intoxicated is not able to comprehend that which they do or that which they say. So a person was prohibited from salah or coming anywhere near the salah until that state had passed, that they're able to comprehend their sayings and actions. The last stage is when Allah SWT mentions in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 90 and 91, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. Mentions that alcohol and gambling and other than this is from the evil actions of shaitan. So stay away from it that you may be successful. Then it mentions إنما يريد الشيطان أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء في الخمر والميسر ويصدكم عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة فهل أنتم منتهون. It mentions only the shaitan only wants to place between you enmity and hatred in intoxicants and gambling, and also to block you from the remembrance of Allah and the prayer. So have you come to an end and have you finished? So it mentions the Sahaba, when they heard this from Allah, they said, Intahayna. So we have finished. From that moment they stopped anything to do with khamr. And they understood that now it is 100% haram. It's not that you can drink it but don't come to salah. Now, la yajuz shurb al-khamr. Now it's not permissible to drink khamr at all. Now, also to be known that it's prohibited by way of consensus of the ummah, that is not permitted, that is haram, any form of intoxicants. There is only exception in terms of in medicine. For example, you have people that they're prescribed with morphine. Morphine as a level of a painkiller, especially in surgical situations. And subhanAllah, me, the first time, and I think it's the only time I've ever had to be given morphine after a surgery, and I couldn't even pray salah. And even that experience alone is sufficient to know why a person is not allowed these things. I remember saying Allahu Akbar, and then I remember waking up. That's it. To the point I had to ask one of my teachers, what do? I can't stay awake. I'm on this. Whenever I start praying, I just find myself, I've fallen asleep. I woke up, I'm in tashahhud or something. I don't know. You can't, your mind is gone. Or I was talking to the person that was also in the room the room of recovery. I'm talking, having a full-blown conversation and falling asleep mid-conversation. Wake up, the person still talking to me. In and out, my mind is not there. So this, the zawal al-aql, anything that is a cause of this is what is khamar. Now, that is taken as a means of enjoyment and drugs and the likes. As for that which happens out of your control, for example, a person hit their head, their mind state altered. This is not upon them. This is not going to be something that is has a ruling like that. But if anything that a person does themselves to cause their mind to alter, change of state, then this is not permissible. But when it comes to medicine, in the professionals of medicine, there are exceptions. No. So in the hadith it mentions, can I make alcohol, vinegar from the alcohol? And it's treated in a certain way that after being alcohol it becomes vinegar. Is that permissible or not? And the Prophet said, La. Why? Because yajibu أو تجب إراقتها. It's obligatory to dispose of it. So if the Prophet Muhammad prohibited taking it to become or make vinegar from it, then taking it as a means of drinking another time is more of a greater prohibition. Is a greater prohibition. Of the things that's mentioned, the sign of something becoming alcohol. If, for example, it was in a container and it starts to froth and it has formed or whatever's on top that starts to raise, then this is a sign that it's becoming alcohol. When it ferments and the foam starts to raise, then this is a sign that it's become alcohol. Akhi, we're in a class, yeah, and if you don't stop this now, I'm going to just block you. You can't come to the class and start talking about these things. Make dua, Allah protects you, that's it. We can't help you leave India. Stay there and go to the scholars of hadeeth. Go to the Muslim areas. But if you keep posting in the live, you'll be blocked. Also, of the things that's mentioned, alcohol can become vinegar if it's treated, either by itself or with treatment. And so they mentioned, for example, if it becomes vinegar by itself, then it is pure and it's halal. It's tahir and it's halal. also the things that mentioned, that some say, this is the statement of the majority of the scholars, even some say it almost, some have said it reached a level of consensus. And that includes those who say that najasa la tatahhar illa bistihala. Something that's impure cannot change unless it comes with istihala, which means a change of state. And that's based on those who say khamar is najis, alcohol is najis. But the correct opinion is it's not najis. It's not najis. Correct opinion. No. So they say, for example, if it has been treated by a person treating it, not by naturally just becoming vinegar, then this is of a number of types. First type, أن يكون المخلل لها خلالا بحيث لو لم يفعل لتضرر فبعض العلماء يرى أن ذلك جائز. Is that a person that is the one who treats it, if they don't do it, it's going to cause harm. If they don't do it, if they don't treat it and it becomes vinegar, it's going to cause harm. That person, some scholars say, that is permissible. الثاني, the second, أن يكون المخلل لها ممن يرى حلها في دينه. The one who's actually making it into vinegar sees it as something that is permissible in their religion. If it was a Christian or a Jew doing it and it becomes vinegar, then it's permissible for the Muslim to consume it, because now it's no longer alcohol, it's vinegar. Now, and it came to a Muslim from those, and it wasn't a Muslim who's doing it. So they say sometimes it's not permissible for the Muslim to be the one who is making it vinegar. But if it comes to them from those who see it as permissible, and when it comes to them it's no longer alcohol, it's vinegar, then it's permissible to be consumed.
يعني والله ما فهمت. يعني
لا أقول إذا كان المخلل الذي يجعله خلا ليس مسلما فوصل إليك الخل فجائز. نعم. Thirdly, if it comes to you from a person who لا يحل له تخليلها, it's not permissible for them to make it into vinegar, أي المسلم. It's not allowed to be done by a Muslim. Then they say, if it happened قبل أن تتخمر فلا بأس. If it happened before it became alcohol, it was treated before it became alcohol and was made into vinegar, no problem. But if it's after it was alcohol, بعد أن تتخمر فلا يجوز فهو حرام. As for if it was after that, then it's haram. It's haram. Now, so that's all the things that are mentioned regarding this hadith. Or the things that we can understand. Basically, if you see vinegar in the shop, it says white wine vinegar and the likes, it's permissible to consume. Because there's no alcohol at all. There's no trace of alcohol at all.
Wine vinegar allowed to take it?
No.
Even from kuffar shop?
It's always from kuffar shop.
لا
It's always.
في فينيجر حلال يعني يبيعونه المسلمين وفي فينيجر في التيسكو والهاي مكتوب عليه
لا أين الفينيجر حلال؟
ها؟
هنا which vinegar says حلال؟
لا صفرة ماركات صفرة لما يكون سوري أو تركي حلال.
إذا كان يعني white wine vinegar يجوز.
I know.
نعم. هذا هو الشاهد.
صحيح.
نعم.
لأنه ما يتحول فينيجر before the كحول is gone.
لا بس يعني كما قلنا هو لا بأس يعني لا بأس لا نفصل لا نحتاج التفصيل. What about foods that contain alcohol but there's no traces in the finished product? Allahu alam. If it's the same, Allahu alam, it depends what is mentioned. But as for food that's cooked with alcohol directly, then la. Like those they cook with wine and stuff, no, not permissible. No. It's best to avoid it. I like tiramisu. I go to a shop, I always have to read the back, it says alcohol. So khalas, you leave it. Al-ahwat, the safest option, is to leave it. Inshallah. But we'll stop there bidnai ta'ala, and then for those here we'll do sort of fiqh. Now, it's not to be consumed now. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك جزاكم الله خيرا السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته